What's up, guys? My name is Francisco, and we're going to start off with question one. In your own words, briefly describe the four waves of feminism. What is it? What is meant by the terms global north and south? Why do women in the global south reject the idea of global sisterhood? Okay, so uh, yeah, like I said, there's four waves or phases of feminism that are described in waves. So the first one was in the around the end of the began at the around the end of the 1800s, and it was primarily focused on achieving the right to vote for women. And then the second wave was around the second half of the 1900s, and it was the main goal for them was the equal rights amendment, um, which they wanted to have added to the Constitution, but ended up not happening. And then and this was the first wave of feminism that was kind of began to be critiqued for being you could say north centric or um, basically just kind of focused on the women who are in like the northern side of the equator. I'll explain more on that in a minute. um, in the third wave, that was really focused. It started to actually focus on the criticism that it wasn't, it was only on rich white women, um, and it kind of brought an intersection. It focused on the intersectionality of multiple different cultures and things, and like different the intersection of identities, like we've learned about in class. And the fourth one has a lot to do with like the internet, and it's in the beginning of this internet age. Sorry, my hat is kind of uncomfortable. And like a lot on like the Me Too movement and things like that were a huge part of it. And then great. So part of that question was what does the terms global south and north mean? So globally, the world can be split up by hemispheres. So the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. The northern hemisphere countries in the northern hemisphere tend to be more affluent, tend to have more power, and tend to, I guess that describes them more. They're just more powerful and have more money. Nations included in this would be the U.S., Canada. Like we talked back in class, Australia is very south. It's very low on the equator, but still considered part of the North because it's culturally and economically more connected to the northern countries than any of the other southern countries. Some other global North countries would be UK, Japan, and then let's see. Oh yeah, why do women in the global South reject the idea of global sisterhood? So they rejected this idea because they felt like the global idea of global sisterhood kind of left them out because um, it was really pushed by women in the global north, and they're saying, "Oh, we're all fighting for the same issues together, all fighting for the same things together." And they're like, "Well, kind of, but what about our issues? Like, you're not really. If we're supposed to be a sisterhood, why aren't you fighting for the things we need? And then, so yeah, they didn't like the idea of a global sisterhood because they didn't feel like they were being that the issues were all about white women and not about them. So the next question is based on the video. Describe the difference between sex and gender. What are the other components of gender identity according to the genderbread person or the genderbread person? So according to the video, gender is something you are. Well, I guess there's sex and gender, and they're two different things. You're born with the sex, and a gender is something that kind of develops and is expressed. So sex is physical and biological. You have XY chromosomes, and you have certain physical developments. It's a physical thing. And then gender is more about is it's gender is how you identify it's based on attraction, and expression. And then we see in the gingerbread man, the genderbread man kind of shows us in the it shows. I'm gonna put it on the. I'm just gonna pull up a photo so I can reference it. Sorry, um, but it's. I'm gonna put it on the screen, but I can't reference it. It's not in front of me. Sorry, I should have been more prepared. I just kind of realized how I wanted to put it. I'm already halfway through. So, the genderbread man kind of shows us about um, how it has like attraction, and it's kind of like a anatomical. It's kind of a silly way, but it explains a good way to explain the difference. It's like anatomically, like your sex is in your genetics, and then your all the other parts that make up of you are also in you. They're just not in. They're at the it's like the soul, it's the personality, it's the rest of you that makes up your who you are and your identity. Besides your sex. Great. So, what are some examples of gender inequalities that exist today? What have you seen of this in your service learning work? Whether or not have you seen this in your service learning work, whether or not you are working directly with clients? So, some of the best examples, or I don't know best, but some of the strongest examples of gender inequalities are the pay gap and the lack of female leadership. I think what the amount of, and I mean, even just especially in the U.S., we have never had a female president. Um, we've only now had a female vice president, and then the amount of women in the House, in Congress, and just yeah. Sorry, I'm lacking on leadership names right now, but I'm a global studies major. I should know this. But yeah, on just government representation is extremely lacking. The Senate, sorry, okay, Congress and Senate, and then um, how I seen this in my service learning work. Actually, I think it's kind of funny. I'm volunteering with Wild Horses. We are or they are, and I am helping them out. A nonprofit that works with people with learning or with disabilities, and I help just today help people take like learning go on horse rides and stuff like that. But it's basically all led by women, and it's all. I mean, it's a cattle ranch, not a cattle ranch. It's like a horse ranch or whatever you call that. It's literally a horse ranch, and which is like a more masculine, like stereotypically like people. That's a inequality that, like, I guess you could say that those are ran by men, but this was entirely ran by women, and except for me and some other random dude, some other male volunteer, but the leadership of it was all women. So, but you could say that that's a sign of well, you could include that in the inequality because that's not really a field that pays super well. Working for nonprofits like that, and mental health and things like that are really not the most high paying jobs. I'm not really sure how well they're paid, but I know that that's can't. I'm not sure if that's the most paid. Great. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.